There you go. All right, I'll call to order the town of Desert Planning Board meeting for April 9th, 2025. Welcome aboard. So let's start with introductions. I'm William Hanley. I'm Planning Board Chair. We've got Alan Kimmerly, we've got Daniel Burke, we've got Ann Dalton, Tracy Loftus Keller, and Gail Marshall. Got a full board tonight and alternate member. Daniel's our alternate member, and let's go for it. I guess I don't need to do my Zoom spiel because no one's out there in Zoom land. And first item on the agenda, other than calling to order the hearing, is approval of minutes, and we have minutes to approve from the 12th of March.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Was it 26?
I have minutes from the 12th.
It should be the 26.
My bad. Thank you.
The minutes from March 26th.
The minutes from March 26th. So let's
You want me to? move
yes,
Approval of those. I move approval of the minutes of the March 26th meeting.
Second.
right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go. Okay. Item 3 on the agenda, we have a subdivision approval application. It's section 4.1. Pre-application procedures for subdivisions, and we are at the sketch plan phase. And tonight we have subdivision 001-2025. Owner is Marky Dunbar. Location is 51 Oak Hill Road, Mount Desert, tax map 10, lot 131. Zoning district is residential 2 and shoreland residential 2. Purpose is to construct a third residential dwelling on a single tract or parcel of land within a 5-year period, thereby creating a subdivision by development. We had a site visit at 5 o'clock, and this was in the paper, but not, but we didn't send out a butter notification. Is that
Correct.
how that works?
Because it's an informal hearing.
Right. Yeah, so just to refresh everybody's memory, you know, the subdivision review process, we have sketch plan, completeness, compliance, and the public hearing. And sketch plan is just like the informal discussion about the project. We have a site visit, we hear from the applicant about it, the public can ask questions, and so here we are. And I'll first ask if there's any conflict of interest on the board on this application.
I happen to live in a house that Mr. Dunbar constructed. And
And when might have that have occurred?
that occurred about 6 years ago.
Mhm.
He built the house in 2004. So I assume that I can be.
6 years ago,
That's more than 6
2004.
years. 19 years ago.
Yeah.
Was.
I bought the house 6 years ago. He built it in 2004.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
There's no conflict.
21 years ago.
Yes.
Anybody see any conflict with that?
No.
All right, I think you're in the clear, Alan. All right, and so we had a site visit at,
Is there adequate public notice? Or was that not necessary? Butters weren't notified.
butters weren't notified, but it was advertised.
Okay,
So,
just wanted to hear those words.
It wasn't verified by the board that it was in the paper, but it's in the paper.
so can we verify that it was in the paper? Do we have anything on that?
No, I don't know.
There we go.
Ah,
There you go.
Thursday, March 27th in the Ellsworth American.
Perfect.
Yeah. Very good. Okay.
So despite the start of the day, the afternoon was gorgeous. We had a site visit at 5, and Anne, would you care to report upon your observations from the site visit?
Sure, we met with Nina and Mark, and they shared with us basically the plan that they would like to do with the property. And then we walked or were driven up to the site, which is an elevated site, beautiful view and certainly spacious and I don't think I learned anything more. Open and
It's a,
beautiful.
it's a big
Big,
lot.
A big lot.
Big open former gravel pit, 9.3 acres. You guys have anything to add? Any other observations?
There are two other residences on the property, one included in a garage sort of building, and the other is under construction that we're told will be a year-round rental.
Mhm. All right, well, I'll turn it over to the owner to add to any of that. And again, we're just here informally for tonight.
I think we've got it all discussed.
Mhm. It's the former gray and gray gravel pit,
Planting.
Blanchard Gray. I guess I'll open it up for public comment if anybody here from the public has any questions about this subdivision application. And maybe Kim, you could just quickly remind us of why this is a subdivision application.
It's a statute, it's
Mhm.
subdivision, title 38, 4401.
Mhm.
When you establish, install, or construct 3 dwelling units on a single tract of land within a 5-year period, that's a subdivision by development, by
Mhm.
dwelling unit. Like you said, Mr. Dunbar got a permit from me in November of 22 to convert, or not convert, to construct an apartment over that storage building / garage. And then in December of 2024, he's got the permit that's for a single family dwelling that's currently under construction, and now he wants to apply for another one. And that's obviously within 5 years.
Mhm. Down the road, when we get into completeness and compliance, and how are we looking this relative to like subdivision road standards?
There's no road standards
Yeah.
that will apply to this, because it's one lot served by a driveway.
Mhm.
Granted, it's gonna split off to serve these 3 dwellings on the property, but it's a driveway. They'll have to name it at some point, but
Mhm.
so that's not gonna apply, so the road standards will be not applicable.
Got it.
Although that puddle,
What's that?
I said, although that puddle.
I told him not to splash you guys.
I appreciate that. He wouldn't do that, we haven't had the meeting yet.
Any questions for the applicant?
No. No, you answered, the question I had was about roads,
Yeah.
and you answered that,
Each house will have its own septic,
yes.
own well, because it's not on town sewer.
Right.
Mhm.
It was further than 200 feet from the lot. If it was within 200 feet, you'd have to connect to it, but it's not. There are a little bit of wetlands in the front of the lot that come from the lot beside him.
Why is it
They're
in,
forested wetlands,
why is it in shoreline residential too?
because of that big wetland that's up in the corner behind. I don't know if you looked at your,
Yeah, oh God.
there's a big wetland. If you take a look at the zoning map that they provided.
Oh. Oh, right.
So because the lot within 250, just a small corner of it is,
Oh,
within 250, he's not even doing anything within it, so it's really nothing to worry about, but because the lot is wholly or partially within there, he just has to meet 2 acres per dwelling, which he's well over that. That he could actually have 4 if he wanted to, houses.
Is there gonna be a actual division of the 9 acres?
No, it'll all stay as one.
Does
We're not
that-
selling
Does
it.
that change a subdivision
No,
because it's not being divided in the?
no, so it's development, by development.
any other questions for the applicant?
No,
No, everybody good? All right, well
so I
then,
guess the next step is,
next step is we just grind down from the checklist. And is there a time frame for scheduling completeness, or does it just,
Once I get the application, we'll schedule a meeting.
yeah, mhm. It's, all that stuff. Make sure he's got the name of the surveyor on the survey and all that,
suffix.
yeah.
They've been sent a long list of items they have.
Mhm. And then we're kind of killing compliance at the same time. And then the last part is just if anybody is the public hearing, and then
Any completeness review or something?
so. Kim, correct me if I'm mistaken, but we're gonna be doing compliance and completeness together. I mean, like, as we're drilling down through the checklist, we're discussing the items of the checklist, but there's no public input during that.
You've allowed it in the past, so
Yeah.
yes, that's up to you, and like I said, it doesn't make sense for the people to come to the public hearing once you guys find the application complete, because they haven't really had any say, if anybody wanted to say anything.
No, I mean, you don't. I mean,
But
there's
you've
kind
always
of,
opened it up and gave the public their due process, so I guess it's
Yeah.
up to you how you wanna run that meeting.
yeah, it just depends on each application. Sometimes we're just, no one's here for it, and we just,
Well, the butters haven't been notified yet,
yeah.
which I don't think it's a big deal anyways.
We don't. Some of the maybe a quarry, but
This isn't a quarry.
this isn't a quarry.
Airport?
Oh,
Landing
So what?
air
Landing
landing
strip.
stuff. No.
Well,
That's not a permitted
if there's
use.
a policy reason to have,
Allowed.
Yeah,
if there's a policy reason to allow public comment at an earlier stage, then maybe we should try to be as consistent as we can about that. And then it'll either happen or it won't.
absolutely. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, I always like to say it is a human process, and
Cause that public hearing, they're gonna bring their copies, because you found them complete.
Mhm.
They're gonna bring their copies, their final copies that you're gonna sign, and they're gonna record it at the registry of deeds, and that's typically what happens at the public hearing.
Mhm.
And what you're suggesting is the horse is somewhat out of the barn by then in terms of public input.
Mhm. Everybody good for the moment?
Yep.
All right, well, thank you.
To be continued.
Yes, to be continued. That was the sketch plan review phase of the subdivision application review process. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
will you be telling us what we have to bring next time?
It's that big lengthy email I sent you.
So what's
Which
that?
has, I got kind of a template that I created. It's just a breakdown of each section that has lines on it to say, don't do this. And if you want to fill it out, submit it to me first before you make the 10 copies and let me look at it.
So do we have to do all the paperwork as if it's gonna be a subdivision that was lost being sold off?
Yeah, unfortunately.
So it's a full
A
blown.
lot of stuff's not gonna be applicable, a lot of it's not gonna be applicable, hence the reason why they say if you fill it out, let me look at it first. And then I'll say, this isn't applicable, this isn't,
And how do we know that? What's not, so we don't have to do it?
I'm gonna send you a template that I created.
Perfect. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
sure. And try to make it easier. Just gonna find it
Yeah.
as best as possible.
Yeah.
Not make it easy for you. Yeah, yeah.
All set?
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a lot, but.
Very nice meeting.
All right, and thank you for the ride up the hill. All right, item 4 tonight, we have a conditional use approval application. It's a conditional use approval application 003-2025. Owner's name is Catherine M. Walker. Agent is Noel Musson, the Musson Group. Location is 1122 Main Street, Soamesville, tax map 21, lot 38. Zone is shoreline residential 2, purpose is section 3.4 and 6C.7. Marine structures, piers, docks, wharves, bridges, and other structures and uses extending over or below the normal high water line or within a wetland. We had a site inspection at 5:30, and this one was advertised and abutters
I
were
don't, I
notified.
don't know about the abutters, but it was advertised in the newspaper on Thursday, March 27th.
Wonder if that's where Kim went. So. All right, well, we'll see if she's got the butters list for us. I'll ask if there's any conflict of interest on the board with this application.
None here.
None heard. Kim's coming back. Were butters notified on this one?
Yes, they were.
Yep.
It's a conditional use application.
That's what I thought. Do we have an abutters list?
Look in the original packet.
Right there. Right behind
March
that.
21st. The,
Yeah, right there. There you go.
yeah, so the abutters, 5 different abutters were notified by notice of March 21st, 2025.
All right. So we were all there for the site visit at 5:30. Alan, would you like to tell us about your observations from the site visit?
We observed an old dock and an old walkway. The old walkway, we were told was washed away in the January storm of 13, 14 months ago, which they've retrieved and is sitting there. And we were told that the outboard face of the rock crib was also damaged. We were not able to view that damage. But it did look like an older structure. And it's going to be, we're told it's going to be replaced. And it's going to be 4 feet higher. And it'll cantilever out 3 more feet than the old crib that's there now. To try to get out to a touch more water at low tide.
Anybody else care to add any other observations? No. Right, well then I'll turn it over to the applicants.
Thank you, Noel Musson, for the applicant. Yeah, just to summarize, it's a replacement. And a little bit of an expansion to the existing pier that's there, so it's gonna go out. The fixed portion will go out cantilevered about 3 feet longer than the old portion, but essentially everything's in the same footprint. The fixed portion of the pier is 45 by 4. The seasonal ramp is a 45-foot ramp, 3 feet wide, and the seasonal float is 16 by 24. All of those standards should be underneath the requirements set out in the ordinance. A couple of things to note also, the stone, brickwork is gonna be, stone filled brickwork is gonna be removed and then replaced with granite grids. Higher, to help accommodate, pier landing higher up on the shoreline and also, to address concerns of sea level rise and storm surge and stuff that's affecting that area. As evidenced by the damaged pier that was already there, which was a lot lower. And the float itself is gonna be made with rails underneath to help keep it up off the mud flats a little longer, actually keep it up off the mud flat. The majority of the float off the mud flat to help with the suctioning effect when the big flat surface sits on the mud flat, it suctions down the rails help prevent that. So, it's wood structure pier, E-Bay deck. Yeah, happy to answer any questions.
We'll open it up for public comment.
Pump house.
Mhm. Going once. Twice. All right, I'll close public comment. And I would think the first thing the board needs to do is make a determination if the application is complete.
I know we find the application complete.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Need another motion in terms of which
I
form,
move we use the short form to process this application.
Second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we do our little thing,
I move we find the we approve the application.
Second.
and we press the pause button. And let's get into the review of the application. So I have the application before me. It looks like I got a checklist over short form checklist here. We've got a land use ordinance floating around if we need it. The compliment the applicant on laying out the application in an easy to follow along manner.
Second that.
Mhm. All right, so let's do it. So here we are. We have section 6, standards for uses, permits and approvals. We are in section 6A, general performance standards. And my favorite, 6A1, compatibility. So under compatibility, we're looking at like the physical size. And the applicant talks about that the proposed pier is similar to most residential piers in the area. It's designed to have a minimal fixed length and a short overall length to keep it compatible. Visual impact, the pier will blend in with waterfront residential character of the area. Many homes in the area have residential piers. Pier is going to be made from wood with granite cribbing. And the seasonal ramp and float would be the same construction material that are typical in the area. Proximity to other structures, it's not close to other structures, and density of development. The parcel being developed consists of a single family home and it doesn't increase density. So see application. 6A2, erosion and sedimentation control. Applicant says that the appropriate erosion control measures will be employed as needed. Erosion control specifications are included with the application, so it's the application. 6A3, highway safety. Applicant says proposed project will not have any impacts on highway safety. Dare I say NA? 6A4, impact on town services. No town services are required, so NA. 6A5, land suitability. The proposed pier will be pinned to the shoreline via steel pins and a granite block anchor with the addition of small granite landing. And no other soil impacts are proposed, so see application. Lighting outdoors, 6A6. The pier does not have any lighting, so NA. Stormwater, 6A7. This applicant says this section is not applicable, the stormwater plan is not required. And vegetation, 6A8. Applicant says the upland access to the pier is over an existing opening. And they say applicable standard met, so see application, dust fumes, vapors, odors, and gases. Applicant says that there will be no emission of dust fumes, vapors, odors, and gases as part of this project. Here I say NA. So the findings of fact are as presented by the applicant in attached application. And the conclusion of law is that the proposed use is in compliance with all standards of section 6A for which the standard has been met.
So moved. I do have one question after a second.
Second.
Go for it.
The ramp is gonna be probably a metal or aluminum,
Yes.
which is in keeping with the others. Okay, thank you.
Great. Motion second. All those in favor?
Uh,
Opposed? Here we go. So moving on. Section 6B. Specific performance standards for activities and land uses. And this might all be NA. 6B1 agriculture, NA, 6B7. Excavation or filling, the applicant says there's no excavation or fill associated with this project, so NA. Fences and walls, 6B8. NA, 6B12, mineral exploration and extraction, NA. 6B15, sign regulations, NA. 6B17, wireless communication facility, NA. 6B18, animal husbandry 2, NA. 6B20, mobile food vendors, NA. 6B21, rooming house, NA. And 6B22, hotels and motels, NA. So the findings of fact are that the proposed use include none of the specific activities or land uses and described in section 6B, and the conclusion was that section 6B is not applicable.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right, section 6C, shoreline zoning standards. So let's flip forward here, page 16. Right. Here we are, 6C1, agriculture and animal husbandry, NA. 6C2, archaeological sites. Yeah, the applicant talks about that the project has been reviewed by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission. It's determined that there's no historic or archaeological resources impacted. It's the application. 6C5, essential services. NA. 6C6, parking areas, NA. And 6C7, why we are here tonight. Marine and freshwater structure standards, so. There's a little chart there on page 19 of the application and. Just run through this quickly, so the max length of entire marine structure, they've got 114. And it's allowed up to 225. Maximum length of all permanent structures is 150 feet. The applicant has 45 feet for theirs. Maximum length of all non-permanent structures, for example, the ramp and float is 75 feet. And the applicant has 69 feet. Maximum width of pier walkway is 6 feet. Applicant has 4 feet for those. Maximum width of ramp is 6 feet. The applicant has 3 feet. Maximum square footage of floats. They have allowable is 400 square feet, and the applicant has 384 square feet. And the maximum square footage of floats for communal marine structures, and that's NA in this case. So, we would say C application. 6C9, roads and driveways, NA. 6C12, water quality. Applicant says NA, the pier doesn't discharge pollutants to affect water quality. Floats are designed to minimize suction on the bottom. It feels like C application, but they've checked NA. So the findings of fact are that the proposed use include none of the specific activities or land uses described in section 6C except for 6C2 and 6C7. And the conclusion was that section 60 is not applicable except for 6C2 and 6C7 for which the standard has been met.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, because we are in the shoreline zone, we get to do section 5(9). Yeah. Oh, no,
Oh, no.
What's that?
we have 5(9) in here,
It's in the narrative though, it's,
okay.
Section 5. Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
Well, it's this, lose a second.
These are section 5.
Yes. So section 5, they heard of. What section is that right there? That's 6. Right, it's right- Okay, so it's right here.
That's 6,
Oh. But it's this right here.
yeah. Are you towards the front or the back? Yeah,
I just keep going.
just keep going.
It's
All right,
after,
I
5 is
got it.
after 6.
Fantastic, I even have my reading glasses.
You're gonna take back his compliment.
Yeah, oh no. All right, here we go. Section 5(9). So 591 will maintain safe and healthful conditions. Well, they got the whole narrative on.
was trying to make it easy for you.
0 for 4. No, of course not. All right, how should I read this? So we've got a narrative on each one of these, so I'll just read that. So we'll maintain safe and healthful conditions. The construction of a marine structure at this location will maintain safe and healthful conditions by providing constructing and safe access to waters in the area. Shoreline's been recently stabilized and there's an existing pier there anyhow. The pier is gonna be secured to shore via steel pins and granite block. So it's the application. 592 will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to the surface waters. The applicant talks about that it's not gonna do any of that. Project is again secured to the shore where the existing pier was. And they'll use erosion control BMPs. The application 593 will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater. That's NA, it's a pier. 594 will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat. Applicant says that the pier is sited and designed to minimize disturbance to shore and intertidal area. It's sitting in the same footprint as the existing pier. And they describe how it's connected to the shore, so see application. 595 will conserve shore cover visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters. Applicant says the proposed structure is pinned to the existing opening in the shoreline vegetation. And it's which will be used to access the structure so that vegetation removal along the shoreline is minimized. See application 596 will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comp plan. Applicant says that it's already been reviewed by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission. And it's been determined there's no historic or archaeological resources impacted. See application. Will not adversely affect existing commercial fishing and maritime activities in the shoreline commercial district. It's NA, they're not in the shoreline commercial district. Will avoid problems associated with the floodplain in use. There are no impacts to the floodplain as part of this project, and they've got their drawings indicating the elevation above the floodplain. And 599 is an
So that was the application.
correct. See the application. 599 is in conformance with the provisions of section 6A, B, and C. We have already done, and I'm going to say standard met. So the findings of fact are see above, and conclusion law is all requirements for section 5.9 have been met.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You're 3 for 4.
Sorry.
I got my stats backwards, so doing well here. All right, permit conditions. You've got the letter here of submerged lands approval. It isn't required.
Nope.
Army Corps
Done.
done. Harbor Master review.
Got it.
Did the Maine Historic Preservation Committee. Tidal waterfowl and wading bird habitat. It's
That should really clarify, that area of the code is the water for the waiting fowl habitat. It's already reviewed by the EPA.
okay. And the FEMA map. Got it's in the V10 zone, so. Sounds like there's no permit conditions on this one.
Not except for the, you know, the standard permit conditions, take pictures ahead of time, take pictures after, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Track mats and stuff, there's the construction of the shoreline.
Are
I think
you,
I mentioned this to you, that it was permitted through the DEP and the Army Corps as part of a larger shoreline project, like stabilization. And we feel, so any of those conditions would be part of that.
got it.
and did I understand that they were saying you have to do that work between November and April? Did I understand that right?
That may be in there, sometimes it is, I will have to go back to check.
Yeah, it's.
I saw it in there, I just didn't, yeah, the habitat. That's kind of between you and them.
What's the bird habitat there?
What is
Tidal wave.
It's just.
Sort of like herons and
Oh, okay.
the few that we have now.
Got it.
Yeah, because the tide goes out a lot, the birds get all observed, that's a good, it's a habitat.
Yeah, there's an eagle's nest like.
Clover may show up.
Plover.
It's gonna call eagle's nest, like over on the point, not away from us.
On that little island.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right, circling back, let's press play on the
So that
approved.
was no permit conditions?
There are no permit conditions. Thank you. Let's circle back to the approval vote. All those in favor of approving the application? Aye. Opposed? Congrats, Noel.
You want your notebook, John?
Okay, so you don't want.
Let's see if we know that.
Yeah, that's like a $3.99 binder. Yeah.
See if we can, figure it out.
We've had a hearing recently where we've had no one online and no one in the audience. Oh, yeah.
That's good, yeah.
No, I didn't, I think there.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
Gotta get them to borrow.
Just a bench.
Choosing.
Was there any, did you want to go over anything while I'm here?
Yeah, so we've got. We only have tonight under other. It's listed other.
Well, when we left off
Mhm.
at our last meeting, I brought up the popular topic of trying to engage the planning board in conversation about the directions that we want to go
I think it's.
in the subdivision rewrite.
Because it's coming, it's coming back.
Maybe get feedback about the desirability of reviewing land uses and restructuring that.
Yep.
And I may have at that meeting inadvertently overstated what we were seeking the planning board to do. It wasn't to actually, and I apologize for that, it wasn't to actually generate a new ordinance for consideration, but to make sure that if the land use advisory committee, that we do struggle with somewhat getting people there to do deep work, so we're just trying to figure out how to get some of that done. And if we have clarity from the planning board, which is the entity that administers this, about what its priorities would be and what it perceives the needs are, for example, in rewriting the subdivision ordinance, then it would clarify the work of the land use advisory committee and hopefully make it more structured and more straightforward. Is that fair?
Yeah, so what I would say is, my understanding is, as we were talking about the land use advisory committee work over the next several months, there's gonna be a period of time over the summer that we may not be getting as much done as we may not be getting as much done. However, we're going to be working on the subdivision ordinance, and the subdivision ordinance is really something that you guys should be looking at. Particularly a lot of the upfront stuff when it comes to procedural questions, some of the things that we talked about the last time when we were talking about the subdivision ordinance. So what would be really helpful is if we could come to the planning board over the next several months, a handful of months, I don't know, whatever that is, so that we can just take up like small bites of the subdivision ordinance together. And then bring that information back to the Luso committee as opposed to the other way around, which is what we typically would do, is say, here's the subdivision ordinance that you all talked about without you guys having weighed into it at all. So we could, particularly for subdivision, flip it around a little bit. And get your input now, and then we can go to Luso, say in the fall, and say, this is all the work that we've done on the subdivision ordinance with the planning board. We can go through that with them. At the same time, at the Luso side, we may be working on things like, clarifying the standards that we might bring back to the table for, mobile home parks. And some of the stuff that we were working on from last time, from last year.
Yeah,
And I would say we should be starting the conversation with you guys and with everybody about like, how does this conditional use permitting process work? Is there a different system that we might want to bring in? And that's where the site plan review ordinance comes in. And it isn't to propose that right off the bat, but at some point in the near term, well, medium term, we'll say, we may want to consider as a town adopting a site plan review ordinance, which would give you better tools to deal with things like what Mark is doing or what we had to deal with for like condominiums or apartments or those kinds of things is one way to think about it. If the one stop comes back and decides they want to do some other things, that's a site plan review. You're really using the conditional use process as a site plan review process, but they're not the same tool. They're not meant to be the same tool. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't work for the town, but it's just some conversation that we ought to have at some point. I think that's what Gail's.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as, yeah, I think as long as we know what we're aiming at and we've got kind of a measured approach to it, then. Yeah, let's get it on the agenda. I mean, just, we all know things are gonna pick up here.
Yep.
In a bit, so there may be some. And conferring with Kim and developing the agenda that it may not be consistent,
That's okay.
but.
Yeah, so we've already started drafting the subdivision ordinance.
So we had that whole subdivision
Yeah.
rewrite and then it got tabled at H-hour.
Yes,
Are we gonna be using that as kind of a point of departure or?
mostly, yes. We're working through it right now just to kind of update some stuff and carry some things over that will be helpful.
Yeah.
And make some tweaks. So Matt's working on that in my office, but what I think where we kind of left off was, first of all, let's start from the beginning and like talk about the review process, and does this still make sense? I just think it's really good timing for you guys to look at it since you just went through like a really rigorous one, and I mean, if this one comes back before you, like, it's just a good time to think like, how this could work a little better in these ways, so we'll be primed to do it, and then we should be spending time talking about like, how does the clustering provision work? Where does workforce housing come into the picture? Do we still need to deal with the road? Whatever we'll call it, like, it's not a variance, but the road provisions, if somebody comes in for that, do we need to keep the subdivisions by, what are those called,
Standards.
what was that?
Road standards?
No, there's like a provision in the ordinance that deals with like
Oh, subdivision,
Non-functional land division.
yeah, functional land division.
Functional land division.
Oh.
It's like that's, so there's like things that are like homegrown. That work for the town of reserve, and we just wanna make sure that we're not dropping them with the right. If they're still good things.
So,
We'll be talking about all these.
so Kim, how does that work in terms of, we've got to advertise that, right?
What's that?
We have to advertise the specificity of what we're discussing under other, right?
Yeah, you can do it as a workshop,
Mhm.
under other, or you can have a meeting that's just completely on that as a workshop.
I mean, if we don't have like a heavy hearing, I mean, I would assume we just slide it under other.
Yeah,
And it's
I
too
guess
late.
I would ask you, you know, if we got a heavy agenda, if you wanted to have just one meeting, that's kind of as a workshop, so that we can continue to work on that if we can. You know, if we can't do it at regular meeting because we're busy with applications.
Yeah. So
Do you have a sense of what's coming and what's in the offing for applications? Do you have any way of seeing
Not really,
that clearly had?
not
Okay.
really.
I mean, it's too late for the 26th, because,
Or,
yeah. Why do I keep saying that?
yeah, that, I mean, it's too bad because that one was kind of like,
Third, yeah,
And I probably won't be, that's a school vacation week and we've already discussed that. I probably won't be here because I have cataract surgery that day and Anne is gonna
oh,
be
come on,
away.
Carol, you can see.
I can't tell you how badly I can't see you right now.
Oh,
I'm gonna be for you.
Mhm.
that's, I mean, yeah, I mean.
So we're talking like maybe the first hearing in May.
Yeah, we,
Which is like, four.
okay,
Right, what, I don't know, something of that nature.
yeah, but we could like be on the end of an agenda, you know, we could be on the other part of an agenda, just come in and say like, here's where we are.
Yeah,
Let's talk about like the process and what this is gonna look like, and then decide. You know, we can make it a little bit tonight, or we could squeeze another one in, you know, we have. A little time, but it would be great to kind of work through it, you know,
well,
before the end of the summer. I
I'm
think.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, and
You
I'm,
still want Luso updates, advisory group updates, and second meeting of the month?
Well,
agenda?
we won't be, yeah, well, we won't be having. Unfortunately, I've tried to get people to come, they won't come or something, that's not, I get it, I mean, I'm not criticizing, but.
I mean, to have the first discussion about this, I'm feeling like it's probably gonna be like that first hearing in May.
Probably have application forms at that point too. We can go over all those things.
And this is the October 2023 draft.
Well,
That-
we'll have an updated version before then,
Mhm.
yeah, but that's what we're starting.
So
If
we're-
there are documents that you can share with us before the meeting, like,
So,
that would be much easier than we're not just
We'll get
walking
you-
the cold, having it seen as a lecture for the first time.
You can look at that one, but I would say, let us just email you the updated version.
Yes,
for the first meeting in May, you want to have workshop under other?
Yes, please,
So what's that mean, is that the?
fingers crossed, there's not.
Whatever the.
yeah, well, when you have something, no, we have to bump it down the road, we can't.
Mhm. I mean, the reality of it is
So-
just, I feel like the regular agenda takes precedence.
Yes, I agree with you. I do
Review
agree.
application and subdivision.
Yes, discussion on subdivision ordinance and applications,
It's not until the 14th, right?
lose all updates. Just to cover.
14th and the 28th.
And I would say
Fifth or
also,
something?
if you guys are like thinking about any amendments that you wish that were in the ordinance that we just haven't got to yet, like we could brainstorm what those are too, like that is a great meeting to
Yeah.
set up that. So if you're marked up your ordinances, you know, hearing cases, you know, like, God, that's crazy, I wish we could change that, or I have some questions about this policy or that policy, and we should, that's a good meeting to talk about it, because that will give us the time to work on it. And then, you know, the goal is to try to not do as many last minute tweaks to warrant articles as typically end up doing. I mean, we're not gonna be perfect at it, but that's like what we're shooting for. But I think this year you're gonna see the subdivision ordinance, whatever, when we all sit down and really think about things, there's probably gonna be a few things, and then, like some housing stuff related to homeowners. But other than that, the agenda's not huge. But, yeah, and I would say anything, you know, policy wise that we're thinking about, like, how do we think about policies that, you know, don't create a lot of work for everybody, but also streamline, you know, some of the things that you have to do, you know, you have to do them all.
Chickens and
Not-
fences, no,
What's that?
chickens and fences.
Yeah, well, we could take all that, I mean, seriously, those are things that if I were going through the list, I'd be like, why? We always ask that question, why are we going to planning board for this?
Mhm.
I get it, I'm sure there was a reason, but we ought to ask those questions.
Got it. All right, any other? How'd we do? All right, well, that only,
I move to adjourn?
there we go.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I.
Aye. Right.